First Coast, Black Nurses Association presents Brewster Nurses, Preserving Our Legacy. Brewster Hospital was built in 1885 as a private residence. Old Brewster Hospital and Nursing Training School was the first medical facility to serve Jacksonville's African American community. Located in the La Villa neighborhood, the hospital opened in 1901 through the efforts of Women's Home Missionary Society of the Methodist Episcopal Church. Matilda Cutting Brewster of Danielson, Connecticut, donated $1,000 in honor of her late husband, the Reverend George A. Brewster, to help start the hospital. Brewster Hospital was sponsored by the nearby Boylan Industrial Home and School, a private institution for African American girls, one of the earliest nursing training programs in Florida. Its students were welcomed by the community and made 1,230 house calls in 1901. The hospital soon outgrew its first facility and relocated to a different part of La Villa in 1910. By 1931, it was located in a large brick building on North Jefferson Street in the old Sugar Hill neighborhood. With the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Brewster Hospital closed in 1966 and reopened in 1967 as the Methodist Hospital. In 2005, the old Brewster Hospital building was moved to its present location from its original site at 915 West Monroe Street. The legacy of these amazing Black nurses of the Brewster Hospital continues with the passing of the torch to this generation. These nurses' influence, inspiration, and foundation has paved a way for many African American nurses today. Let's go into a live session as the Brewster nurses tell their story.
Welcome to the First Coast Black Nurses Association webinar. Today we are showcasing the Brewster nurses of Jacksonville. Some of our goals we would like to share with you guys today would be the tenacity of the Brewster's nurses, some of the things they had to endure as a Brewster's nurse, and we also would like to talk about the North Florida Land Trust and what they are doing today to preserve the history of the Brewster Hospital. So today we're going to start off with three phenomenal women. To my left, I have Miss Lulu Mae Jenkins. To my right, I have Miss Sylvania Baker Dotson. And to my far right, I have Miss Doris Tucker Putman. And we're going to start off with Miss Dotson, a graduate of the class of 1959. Could you please share your story with us and your journey of your nursing history?
Gladly. I'm a graduate of Ralph Bunche High School, Woodbine, Georgia, class of 1955. I've always desired to become a nurse. I was inspired by a public health nurse who came to visit my brother who had diphtheria, and during those times he had to be, they were quarantining you at home when you had certain communicable diseases. And to my surprise, this nurse was a public health nurse, and she came to visit my brother. I immediately told my parents that I wanted to apply for nursing school. It was a little late for the class, the entry class of 55. So I was unable to begin nursing until 56. I did make the application. They reserved a spot for me, and until I was able to attend nursing school, I entered Edward Waters College to get a head start on some of the courses that I would need. And I remained there for the first semester, got homesick, and went home and stayed there until I was admitted to Brewster Duval School of Nursing. To my surprise, it was a greater challenge than I anticipated. But I ended nursing the course that I started in '59, and I was the valedictorian of a class of 12. I was surprised about that. Nursing, since nursing was my dream, I tried to make the best of it. I was married while I was in nursing school. And I have 6 beautiful children. I was able to raise my children, work a full-time job. I started at Duval Medical Center, where we had most of our clinical experiences. The majority of them, we had the basic nursing, the entry courses like fundamentals of nursing, and the practice at Brewster Hospital. But the majority of our experiences were Duval Medical Center. And if you really want to see the best of best, there were all sorts of types of ailments, illnesses, diseases. You were exposed to everything. Our clinical psychology, well, we did psychiatric nursing, we affiliated in Petersburg, Virginia for 3 months, and that was another challenge. You've never seen so many sick, mentally sick, physically sick, and we had to take care of them. The students got the worst, the most difficult cases. And it was a good experience because when you came out, you were sharp, you were ready, and you could conquer the world. That's what we thought anyway. Locally, I've worked Duval Medical Center. Our director was Ms. Reed. You remember Mrs. Reed? She asked for if I would remain in Jacksonville and work at the old Duval Medical Center, which I did accept the position. And I worked in, my first assignment was the recovery room, and that was a challenge. I was one of the few people who experienced the first cardiac surgery by Dr. Batchelder, and I think it was the first in the city, I'm not sure, but I know it was the first for Duval Medical Center. And my next assignment was St. Vincent's. I left Duval Medical Center, went to St. Vincent's, and they were welcomed me with open arms. The patients were surprised because the hospital was integrating. It had formerly not accept Negro patients, they called them. And that's why the Brewster Hospital was founded by the Methodist women. And it was the first hospital that accepted black patients, or Negro patients as was known then. I was glad to experience the different challenges and diversities that we were confronted with. I'm speaking from my heart because I did not prepare a speech. But if you really have a particular goal in mind, just go for it, and you won't regret it if you give it your best. So I ended up, from the inspiration of the public health nurse that started and inspired me, I ended up being a public health nurse for 31 years in Duval County Health Department. And I enjoyed every minute that I was there. I taught a lot of mothers how to bathe their babies, how to prepare formulas. We had bags, blue bags, and I think Ms. Putman can attest to this. They gave me a bag because I was a bag nurse. When I retired after 31 years, and as I stated, I enjoyed every minute. Doris Putman was one of my supervisors. I don't know how she managed to do all the things she did, but she was and she was a great, great supervisor. Lula I met because she was a class behind me. But I'm thankful for all of the exposure that we had, all the challenges. And I don't think you could find a Brewster nurse that was not accepted and respected highly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, what a remarkable journey you had. And you still are inspiring, Ms. Dotson. Whether you believe it or not, you still are inspiring the younger future generations. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now I would like to go to Ms. Lulu Mae Jenkins, class of 1960. Could you please share your nursing journey, some of the challenges, some of the motivations, some of the things you endure as a Brewster's nurse?
Well, my nursing started out right after I graduated from New Stanton High. My class was the first class to finish from New Stanton High on 13th Street in Jacksonville, and I worked as a clinic nurse in high school. I also came from a family of 9 children, my mother and father. We were poor, we didn't have too much. I worked after school to save my money up to go to college. I am the only child out of 9 children to go on and pursue a career after high school. At Brewster, I worked at Brewster Hospital once I completed my nursing. I worked there for, I would say, 6 months. And the newcomers, which was myself and others who came into work, if he was on the bottom of the list, what I call it, and the census got low, we were the first people for them to lay off. Well, I was poor, I needed some money. So I had to get me 2 jobs. So my girlfriend worked at Baptist Hospital, and she told me about Baptist. So I went and applied for a job at Baptist and worked at Baptist for 32 years before I retired. And the reason why I retired after 32 years was they had FCCJ to come in with students training and finish. And we also had Brewster, and we also had St. Vincent nursing program as well. So once they got out of school from either one of those areas, they couldn't get a job. So since I had worked 32 years, was the first black supervisor of intensive care. This was before integration. If you all know what I mean, that was when they had black and white, or Negroes and white. After that, I called myself going to another job. I was interested in the inmates in the jail. I've always been interested in them because I felt that they wasn't getting the care that they needed being in jail. So I left Baptist after they come up with the early retirement. And I went to the jail and worked at the jail for 10 years, and I got a job being the clinical supervisor over health care for inmates. And I was so familiar with the inmates, and they were so familiar with me until they know that they had a problem that I would take care of it. So I was responsible for taking blood pressures, listening to the inmates, and if they needed to go to DMC, which was Duval Medical Center, Nashans, or whatever they might call it now, I would get a referral and get them to the hospital so they can get the care that they needed. So that was a challenging thing for me as well. So I got married, and after I got married, my husband retired before me. And he looked like he was having so much fun with retirement. So after I had retired from Baptist and worked at the jail for 10 years, I said, well, boy, I need to have some of that fun. I need to retire as well. So I retired from the jail downtown, and I wasn't satisfied doing that. I was also a CPR instructor, and I taught nurses, CPR at churches, community service, and what have you. So I did that, I guess, for 10 or 15 years, and couldn't get away from that. Every time I looked, somebody would call and wanted me to do this and do the other. So then I wanted to try something new. I went to H&R Block and started doing taxes for H&R Block. Did that for 10 years. So then I decided I wanted to travel and see what the world was like. I went to Vegas and all these different places and everything. So after that, I retired from everything.
Wow.
I retired to be a wife. I have a daughter that I helped through medical school, and my daughter is a doctor now, and I guess she's been doing that for, I guess, about 8 or 10 years on her own now. My husband expired in 2013. She was living out of town, and she come to help me take care of him. And after he passed, she had already started buying a house, a car, and all that kind of stuff. So she lives here in Jacksonville. We talked to each other on the phone and all that all the time. And that's it.
Wow, what a story and what a journey. And I like the fact that you never stopped. Nursing was in your blood.
That's right.
You kept doing different phases and different types of nursing along the way, but you still had that heart. And I think that's phenomenal. Just like Miss Dotson here, nursing, like she said, is something, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. It's in your heart. She started off at public health. So thank you so much for sharing your story. So now I'm going to go to Ms. Doris Tucker Putman, a class graduate of 1961. Could you please share your story with us, your nursing journey?
Hello, everyone. I am Doris Tucker Putman, and I'm a native of Fitzgerald, Georgia. And I came to Jacksonville in 1956. I was right out of high school, and I was a country girl, number one. And you know, you're not exposed to a lot when you're a country girl. But I always have enough people. And my sister, one of my older sisters, lived in Jacksonville, and she was a beautician. And I told her what I wanted to do, and she says, well, when you graduate from high school, I'll come and get you. So I graduated on a Friday. She had her husband to pick me up on a Sunday, and that's history. So much for farm. So anyway, I was, at that age, you had to be at least 18 years of age in order to enter nursing school. And I wasn't there yet. So I went to Edward Waters College for a couple of years. At that time, it was a 2-year college. And I went there for 2 years, and after those 2 years, I was admitted successfully to Brewster Hospital School of Nursing. And that's how my journey started. I was there for 3 years. That's how long the program was. And it was really nice. I can't say that I had any bad experiences when I was there. I enjoyed, the instructors were very, very strict. That's number one. You had to make up your mind that this is something that you wanted to do as a life journey, and you had to know that you had to follow instructions because they didn't play. I had a favorite saying that they didn't even play the radio. And they were very strict. And you know, I look at the nurses today, before I go on, and I thought, they don't look like we did when we were nurses. We had to have on white shoes that was shining, and you could almost see your face in it. You had on nice white pretty clothes. You had your nice caps on, and you worked, and everybody in the hospital knew that you were a nurse. Now you can't tell the nurses from some of the other technicians that work in the hospital. And they don't wear the nice, pretty, shiny shoes anymore. You know, and that's the one thing that I regret, but, you know, things change as life goes on. After getting out of nursing school, that was in 1961, I graduated there, and then I went to work for Duval Medical Center, where Miss Dawson worked, and I worked there for a year. I left there and went, I thought when I got out of nursing school I would make a lot of money, because, you know, I wasn't accustomed to making money. And when I got my first paycheck, it was $64, and I had worked 2 weeks. You know, and I thought I was going to make more money than that. But I don't know what the other nurses were making, but that's what I got paid for working for 2 weeks, $64. And I said, I've got to find me something else to do. So I left Jacksonville, and I moved to New Jersey for 3 years, and I worked at Muhlenberg Hospital in Plainfield, New Jersey for 3 years. And then I came home, and I met my husband, and I got a job at Baptist Hospital. I worked there until I got pregnant with my son, and because I had a complicated pregnancy, I couldn't work. And so I worked there for 5 years, and after I left there, I went to work with the health department. And in between that, when I got in the health department, then I decided, you know what, I need some more education. That's the way I looked at it, because I said I've got to do better in life than this, you know, I can do better. So I went to school at night. I would take classes, you know, you could take classes here and there to get my BS degree. And I did that from University of North Florida. That's when they were just getting started themselves, and they had the 2 buildings. Nothing looked like it now. So I started going there. I got my BS degree, and when I got my BS degree, then I decided I'm going to get my master's degree. So I got my master's degree in allied health from University of North Florida. And in that meantime, I also, after I did that, then there was an opportunity for me to go to the University of South Florida in Tampa.
Yes.
And I went there, and I got some more certificates in nursing. One was advanced registered nurse in gerontology. And I got, what else did I do? I have to look and see what I did. But I did so much. I also became a certified nurse practitioner in adult health. I became certified in American Red Cross education, and I taught at the American Red Cross for, I guess, maybe 3 years, health education. I co-published an article in 1993 in the Jacksonville Medical Journal. I did that. I was a co-publisher. And I served on the American Cancer Society. You know, they had a volunteer program where they was training people to be volunteers for the American Cancer Society, and they had a new program they wanted to introduce called Tell a Friend. And I don't know if any of you remember that or not, but I was one of the initial persons attached to that program, and that gave me an opportunity to travel different places because they were trying to get people interested in, tell a friend so that we could kind of reduce the incidence of cancer because it was rampant. It still is, but I think at that time it wasn't a whole lot known about cancer that should have been known about that. So I worked with them for a while. And when I decided I was doing more work than the people who got paid to work there, I decided it was time to go. But anyway, that's a joke I tell because I worked there so much, and I did. And it was a good experience, and I enjoyed it because you did get a chance to interact with a whole lot of people. I attended the Leadership Institute at the University of South Florida. I was also how you would say it, the public health nurse for the state of Florida. They only have 1 year of attending, but I was the I was the supervisor, not the supervisor, what you call it, director of leadership. For that, and I did that, and that was a great experience because that was for the whole state of Florida. So I got a chance to travel all across the state of Florida for a year doing that. I also was voted one of the 100 nurses.
Yes, great 100 nurses.
The great 100 nurses. I got voted on to be a member of that, so I joined that. So I attended that. In 2001, I was elected as the president of the consultant administrators and supervisors, and that's called CASE. I couldn't think of the name in the beginning, but that was called CASE for the state of Florida. Then, I don't think I told you all, but I had one son, and my husband, he worked for the post office, and he got injured. And so he was just disabled for a long time. So between working, taking care of my son, I had a lot to do. Yes. So I was busy for a long, long time. But I don't have any regrets for anything that I did because I enjoy life. Even now, I enjoy life. And I try not to let anything get in my way to stop me from enjoying life. And I think people need to look for the bright side and not look for the sad sides. So that's kind of my journey. Now, I can't think of any bad things that happened to me because I was always such a positive thinking person until I could take a bad thing and find something good about it. And I still can. And I think that's a blessing. So that's my journey.
Wow, what a story and what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And so now I have a few questions for each of you guys. This first question, I would like for each of you guys to take the question, and I'll start with you, Ms. Putman. And our question is, what would you tell nurses who are considering leaving the profession during the pandemic? Because you said you like to take a negative and turn it into a positive. So we have a lot of nurses thinking about leaving because of COVID. What would you say to those new nurses right now, or nurses in the trenches as we speak?
My first question to that nurse would be, why? Now, I know there's a lot of stress, because so many people become ill, and you have so much to do that, but someone has to do it.
Yes.
And so my first question would be, is it that you can't do it because of other obligations, or is it because you're having to do more because you don't have enough help? And if you leave, just think about the person that you're leaving behind, because that person's got to do more now because you walked away.
Exactly. Thank you so much. That's a great answer. I have the same question for Ms. Dotson. What would you say to those nurses?
Well, first of all, I think it's it's really important to enjoy, to appreciate, and to like what you choose in the path that you take. So, me personally, if I felt that at a particular time that I made a bad choice, or I may feel that I can't accomplish this, I think I can do better in another area, then I would say follow your heart. Because in order to be successful in any endeavor, you've got to really make up your mind, because you're the one have to make the decision. And who would want a nurse taking care of them or their family who doesn't like their job? They're going to mistreat somebody, or they're going to misrepresent the profession. So I say find your niche. That would be my advice.
I think that's great advice,
Yeah.
because if your heart isn't in it, nursing is all about heart. You got to have your head in it. You got to have your soul in it. And if your heart isn't in it, summing up what you say, then go somewhere else, because you got to have your heart in there. I love it. All right, so Ms. Jenkins, what would you say to that nurse?
First of all, I would ask her, why did you become a nurse? That's the first question you have to think about. Why did you become a nurse? And if you can answer that question along with the Nightingale pledge, I think that they will take a second look at, the way that they're thinking, because all that is part of nursing.
I love it. I love it. Good answer. So you hear that, younger generation and future nurses and nurses who are in the profession? You need to think about some of their answers. I think it's great. So my next question, and I guess this question I will go with you, Ms. Jenkins. What was your most memorable experience as a Brewster nurse? What's something that just stands out as a Brewster nurse? What would be the most memorable experience?
I think once we finished school that we were much smarter. I want to use the word smarter than lots of the other schools where nursing had finished, because our instructor was very strict, and we had a checkoff list for all the procedures that must be done before graduation, being some like inserting a nasogastric tube for people that was unable to eat by mouth, and a tube had to be inserted down their GI tract to their stomach to feed them, giving animals, clean out your bowels, and all these different procedures had to be done before you could finish school. They didn't care whether it was 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was. If you didn't have it done, they would wake you up. You would have to go to the hospital and do that procedure to get checked off. And they wouldn't let you graduate until everything was done. I remember they woke me up lots of times for procedures that I had not done. And you have to do so many, like starting IVs too as well. And they had an injection clinic where you would go and you had so many of them to do. And if you didn't get them done, you just couldn't graduate until you get all that stuff done. And that was real challenging for me. I think it was a good idea, because once we finished, some of the students from other schools, when they come in, they knew the book work. We had to do the book work, but we had to do the procedures. And I never will forget it. A lot of us had not did animals. Do you know we did animals on each other? Can you believe that in school? And everybody running to the bathroom at the same time?
Wow.
But anyhow, you got the feeling of, what these things were and how the patients felt when you did it rather to them. And that was quite challenging.
And I can see where that would be challenging, and I'm right there with you. I'm a graduate of Bethune-Cookman University, class of 1997, and those instructors, as she said, they didn't play the radio.
They didn't play the radio,
were
that's right.
very focused, very serious, and you're like terrified. I mean, gosh, I was a year after I graduated, I kept my uniform, my books, my papers. I was afraid they were going to call me back to do something else. So I totally relate with you. You got to have that rigor in all nursing programs, and like you said, it makes you more prepared. And I love the enema. We didn't do that with the enema.
We did.
But I like the fact that you knew how the patient felt. You put yourself in there, so you had empathy, and I think that's very important. So thank you for sharing that, because you were able to give us a story of what would a day's work, a day in the life of a Brewster's nurse, and we all know you got woke up early in the morning to go to the hospital to do procedures. So thank you very much. So my next question would be for you, Ms. Dawson. So she gave us one side of it. What would you say would be challenging? What was the most challenging thing for you? Because you had 6 children, you had a husband, and you were in school all at the same time. How did you do that?
Well, now, the 6 children came much later.
Oh, okay.
Not much later. I mean, that was after.
How did you handle the challenges?
I couldn't have possibly done all of those things simultaneously, except I had a lot of support from my family, because I had a set of twins.
Wow.
So I had 2 babies at one time. But I would say, would you rephrase?
What was most challenging for you when you were in nursing school at the Brewster Hospital?
Oh, in the school, okay. I didn't know if you meant after I graduated.
No.
I think the most challenging thing was I came from a small county in Georgia, Camden County. I graduated from the Bunch High School. There we were limited in the exposure to certain things that should have probably been offered in high school that weren't. So I had to play catch up.
Yes.
And my routine was when we finished a day's assignment, be it clinical or if it were, we were bused to the college in order to get our sciences and English and so forth, if you had not already had that. So what I would do when I came from a day's assignment, whatever we had to do, I would do my routine. We would go to dinner, come back, take a bath, get a nap, and then I would start studying. And I studied probably more than anybody studied because I was so far behind.
Yes.
So and when I say behind, I really mean that, because we were limited in where I was from. A few years earlier, like my older sister, they only got an 11th grade education. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I see.
So if you're behind already, you got to play catch up somewhere. And I did the same thing after I graduated from Brewster Duval, and I was working and raising a family. I also pursued a higher education, enrolled in University of Florida first, and then I took classes at Duval Medical Center. They would come and offer classes, and then from that I went to UNF and got my bachelor's in nursing, because wanted to enhance my education
Yes.
and update, just stay current. And after that, there were other like courses that you could take to maintain, sustain, and I did all of that. In addition to raising all 6 of my children, and which all have a college degree. Some have 3 of them have masters. One her dissertation shy of a PhD. So I had to keep them motivated and stimulated.
Yes.
And their children are the same way. They are very persistent. They're very intelligent, very bright children. And so you have to have a good foundation.
Yes.
So my mother was the force behind she had 16 children. And three of them died, but there were 13 of us, and my father had 1 child, and that meant 14 children. We weren't there all at the same time because, we were 7 and 8 years apart, some of us. But the point was, everybody who wanted to have an education, they got one.
That's awesome.
They got one. I had a brother that passed just last year. He was the first black principal of the high school in Camden County after integration.
Wow. That's
So I'm not saying that to be braggadocious.
I know.
I'm saying that because you asked the question. And this is what you get, from just being real attentive. You got to be accept challenges, and you've got to work hard.
Yes.
So this is the end of the result of what.
So basically, you established and set a phenomenal foundation for your children. They went on, did great things, still doing great things, and you instilled that in a young age that you got to accept the challenge. And
You
rise
have
the
to,
occasion.
and even if you missed some classes, or if you did not have as much as Ms. Putman had over here, or Ms. Neal have over here, you just do what you can do the very best you can, and just stick to it. Just work, and that's what we did.
And through all of that, you graduated valedictorian.
And that was because I didn't know the stuff, and I had to study.
You studied twice as hard as the other person
because you know what?
you had to make sure you
Seriously,
knew it.
you know what? I could not. I didn't know how to play bid whist. The girls would go get the card game going and all while they were playing cards, I was studying.
Yes.
And I did that. I mean, I'm not being critical of them,
Right?
Because they were smart enough to stay in school and then have some recreation, which is good. But I'm telling you, I had to get it up here.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love it. So I'm going to go to you, Ms. Putman. What would you say to the students who are just content with going and getting the 2-year degree, and they said, okay, I have my 2-year degree in nursing, and that's it, I'm done, and not even thinking, perhaps, of the things that they could have if they go further? Because according to the Institute of Medicine and Nursing, they wanted at least 80% of nursing to be at the bachelor's degree level by the year 2020. That's with the Institute of Medicine. But yet we have a lot of nurses. I mean, it's okay to have the 2-year degree, but why not go further? What would you say to those nurses with the way the country is today?
I would want to know what was the aspiration for wanting to be a nurse, number one? Because if you want to stop at the minimum, to me, it doesn't seem like you wanted to do more and advance more in life in the career that you've chosen.
Love it.
So I would have a problem with that person who wanted to do 2 years and stop there. You know, you either want to be a registered nurse, an LPN, or advanced, however far you can. But to stop at a 2-year, to me, it just meant you just wanted a job, so you wanted the security of a job so you could just go work. And you weren't looking for anything else in life.
Yes, thank you so much. Because if the Institute of Medicine would want all nurses, 80% or all nurses be at the bachelor's degree level, a lot of the hospitals, because of different type of accreditation standards, they really want nurses to be at the bachelor's degree level. Most hospitals have a contract within 1 year. They want you to sign the contract that you will be going back to get a higher level degree. So you're absolutely right. Where is your future of nursing?
With all of the advances made in medicine, with all the technology that goes along with it, you just can't learn how to do so many things that you need to know with a 2-year degree.
I agree, thank you. So my last question for each of you, very last question, and I guess that question would be your last piece of advice. If this was you talking to your granddaughter, considering at a crossroads, can't decide what direction, how would you sell nursing, the profession of nursing, to this person that really doesn't know what they want to do? They think they want to do something in healthcare. They really don't know. This is a high school graduating class of 2022. What would you say to them to sell nursing?
Well, I have a set of twin granddaughters, and they're in 11th grade now. And so I started out by asking them, have you thought about what you wanted to do when you graduate from high school? One said to me, well, I haven't really made up my mind, but I want to play basketball. But that's not what she wants as a career. She said, what I want to do, I want to play basketball, and I want to, with the medical, she wants to be a doctor of,
Like a PA?
no, sports medicine.
Sports medicine.
Sports medicine. That's what she said. She said she wanted to do sports medicine. And I was surprised because she knew about that. I said, well, you know you have to work hard. And she's excellent in basketball. She's excellent. And they've been looking at her because she is so good. So I said, well, you know what, keep up your grades. She's on the dean's list. I said, keep up your grades, and then you can pursue your profession when you graduate. Just choose the right school. The other one said to me, well, I want to work in the government. I said, you want to do what? She said, I want to do whatever I can do working in the, with the public and government. Well, I said, have you thought of it? She's an excellent, she's a math whiz. This girl was taking advanced math 7th grade. Wow. And she really, I said, have you ever thought about being a mathematician? She said, She's good at it, it's just come natural, and she can draw. I mean, would be an excellent artist. They have featured her drawing, believe it or not, in the shopping mall where she lives.
That's great.
Twice they've done it, because she's just that good. And I said, did you think about being an artist? She said, no. She said, I want to work with the government. So I would say to a person in that position, if you know what you want to do, and that's what you really want to do, okay. I said, have you ever thought about being a nurse? Well, if they never thought about it, and that doesn't seem to be their interest, I wouldn't try to push it.
I agree 100%, because we want, as I love the way Ms. Dotson says it best, you want them to follow their heart. Thank you.
And if they don't follow their heart, they'll never make it.
That's true. So I want to go to Ms. Jenkins next. Could you tell me how would you sell nursing to a graduating senior right now?
Well, first of all, I think you need to look back at the parents once you talk to them and they decide that they want to be a nurse. Because financially, a whole lot of people can't afford to send their kids to nursing schools now because the price have jumped sky high. I think, if I remember correctly, when I went to nursing school, the whole tuition fee, I think, was something like $1,500. Well, you can't even
Wow.
go and pay $1,500 now for nothing. So you have to plan way ahead of time. And I think even if the parents save $2 or $3 per paycheck or per week and put it in a bank account or something like that where they can get some interest and so forth on it to sort of help their children for whatever they endeavor or whatever career, whether it's nursing or whatever, you know, to go to school, they need to do that. Because I had to do all that on my own. My parents couldn't help me out any. Like I said, I came from a family of 9 children, and had I not walked in the neighborhood 3 times a week to 5 different people washing dishes with hand, we didn't have no dishwasher machines and all that, and each one of them would pay you 50 cents a day for that. And I had me a little piggy bank that I dropped that money in because I know I wanted to be somebody and I didn't want to be like it was when I came, you know, with my family where they couldn't help me out. And, you know, you have a jump start. These loans that people get to go to school now, that's the worst thing you can ever get. My daughter got a loan. I told her not to even get a loan, but she decided that she wanted this extra money to do whatever it is that she wanted to do. She's still paying on them loans. It seems like it's been forever. You know, you get a certain amount, you pay for it about 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
So anyhow, it should be, you know, you have a conversation with your children at an early age. I would say 12 years of age, or at least 15, to find out, you know, what their plans are and, you know, save a little money on the side, money that you buy cigarettes with or booze or whatever, put that aside for your child. And that will give them a jump start to help them out.
Thank you. I appreciate that because it is all about setting goals
That's
with your
right.
child, sitting there and saying, okay, let's talk about the future and let's come up with a plan to get there. Thank you. So I'm going to give the very final word to Ms. Dotson as far as how would you sell nursing? Because you did a lot, you had lots of challenges. How would you sell nursing?
Well, let's see.
That's mine, don't worry about
Since
it.
it's final, I'll say amen. But no, seriously, if I were to sell nursing, I would probably want to find out what that person being at the age where decision time for careers, I think what I would do is try to expose that person. If nursing is the direction that I would suggest for that person or think that would be promising or possible. And I would expose them to some of the schools or some very good nurses like Miss Putman and Miss Jenkins and Miss Neal. I would expose them because I know that you all would take the time to you know, talk to the young person and say, we're going to set up some opportunities for you to be exposed and so you can learn and learn as much as you can by reading. And they can find a lot of information, you know, from TV now, from the YouTube, and yeah, what's the other,
Facebook.
Facebook, yeah, all of that, all of that I don't have. I would expose it.
No.
And really, if you just try to live the life that if you can have a good communication between the person that you want to motivate or stimulate or
Right.
advise, you got to be able to communicate with them, And so I think that might be one of the best, I think, tools that you could offer. I've got a bunch of grand young'uns, and I have 10 granddaughters. 8 of them have graduated from college.
Wow.
The only 2 that's not is one that's 10, and the other one is 8.
They're on their way.
They're on their way.
Thank you. Ms. Putman, would you like to say
I just want to say one last thing
Yes.
about nursing. It's first of all, you gotta love people.
Yes, that's true.
You gotta have a heart for people.
Exactly.
Everyone is, there are different people. I loved people from the beginning as long as I can remember, and I don't let people get the best of me. I can't say that you don't get upset with some of the people some of the time. But loving nursing, I worked in nursing for 42 years. And I loved every moment that I worked in nursing. And if I hadn't had issues at home, I probably would have worked a few more years
Yes.
because I felt just that good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And that is pretty much the end of our program today on this segment. Thank you very much to each one of you for sharing your nursing journey and sharing it with our audience and sharing it with the future generation. I hope you guys will listen to what each of them said. For anyone who's considering going into profession, remember, you gotta have heart.
We'll be right back.
Welcome. Today, I have with me none other than the president of the North Florida Land Trust, Mr. Jim McCarthy. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just have a few questions of the connection of the North Florida Land Trust and the Brewster's Hospital and the Brewster nurses.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll. I appreciate it very much. Good to see you and good to talk about Brewster Hospital.
Oh, yes, every day it's good to talk about Brewster
Every day.
Hospital.
Yep.
So my very first question for you, sir, would be, could you explain to us what is the North Florida Land Trust? Could you tell us your purpose, your organization?
Sure. We are a not-for-profit organization. It was founded in 1999, and our purpose is to preserve our quality of life by preserving the irreplaceable natural resources that we have in Northeast Florida. We've been very active in acquiring property. For the most part, that's what most people know us for, is that we acquire property in and around the city. American Beach was one of our most recent acquisitions. We acquired property in American Beach.
Yes.
And that ties directly to this conversation about Brewster. But in addition to that, we buy land elsewhere in and around the area. And we very much were interested in history because it's Jacksonville. I mean, what we did and who we were is who we are. Yes. And so it really is important to preserve that part of our history. We wanted to be part of La Villa. It was part of the part of our restoration activities. We had to restore Brewster Hospital. It was a deal we cut with the city. It's a city-owned building, as you may know.
Yes.
It's a city-owned building, and we leased it, and we did the restoration work, and then now use it as our offices.
That's beautiful. I have a quick question. Of all of the history, because Jacksonville has a lot of history, why did you pick the Brewster's Hospital? Because you could have picked anything. Why the Brewster Hospital?
Well, I think it was more than just a building we were looking for. We were looking for something that made a statement.
Yes.
And we looked at other properties. The Downtown Investment Authority was great and showed us a number of different properties in town. And we saw some really nice ones and some And we didn't want just regular office space,
Yes.
but we were looking particularly for historic properties. And there were a number, but Brewster had a history.
Yes.
And once you saw that building, you could see, even in the condition it was in when we saw it, what now, 5, 6 years ago?
Yes.
When we first saw it, it was not in good condition, but because it had been left vacant for so long. But you could tell that it had, as they say in HGTV, it had good bones.
Yes.
You could tell that.
Good structure.
But you also had a feeling when you walked into it that there was something special about this place.
I agree.
There's something unique about it, particularly in terms of Jacksonville. There's not that many buildings built in 1885 that are still around. I mean, a number of them were destroyed in the fire.
True.
And we particularly were interested in making a statement about La Villa. There's a lot of redevelopment taking place in La Villa.
Yes.
And we wanted to be part of that effort. And now we're part of that effort to connect more of La Villa with other historic places. We know that the Rendezvous at American Beach, where we acquired that property, or near where we acquired that property, had a direct connection to the Ritz Theater.
Yes.
The people that played at American Beach at the Rendezvous also played at the Ritz. People like Ray Charles and
Yes.
Cab Calloway
Right.
and Billie Holiday, and those people all played both facilities. So that's near us. I mean,
Yes.
and it's only a few blocks from where we were. So that's why it struck me and all of our board members when we put it together, when we had our opening and they had seen it originally.
Yes.
And we're a little questioning my judgment, I think. But nonetheless, did it, agreed to it, and then we're really impressed and really pleased with the work that was done to restore it. It was great.
I really like the design. Is it an American design, or where did that design come from? Because you don't see buildings like that a lot.
Yeah, you really don't. It's almost kind of a New Orleans style.
Yes, it
almost.
does have a New Orleans flair.
Kind of a flair to it. And if you look actually in the woodwork that's on the front of the building,
Yes.
it has 1885, the year it was constructed, actually inside the columns.
Wow.
And it's cut out inside the columns. And the original part of the building was the first 4 rooms, that first floor. But I would call it very much a New Orleans style, a French colonial.
French, Italian, something like that.
Yeah, the woodwork inside is just gorgeous.
It is.
It is, and particularly the floors are incredible, and the stairwells or the staircase actually going up. It was redone a couple of times in 1945. It was
Yes.
updated, and then of course we restored it in. Now I want to think it was 2016, 2017. We started work on it, and
So
did
I'm
well.
curious, what are some of your long-term plans for the Brewster's Hospital? You restored it, you put all this money into it, brought it back to bring it back up to date. It's beautiful. So what are the long-term stores to preserve the memory of the hospital as well as the Brewster nurses?
Well, when we agreed to move into the facility and did the restoration, part of the agreement with the city was to create a museum.
Yes.
And the southwest corner of the building is always going to be a museum for the Brewster Hospital Nurses Association. It's a great facility. It really does memorialize their history, and it's incredibly important to us. Long term, we very much want to remain part of what's going on in La Villa.
Yes.
We know the DuPont Foundation is working on a project to connect the Weldon Johnson Park with the Ritz-Carlton.
Yes.
Not the Ritz-Carlton, the Ritz Theater.
The Ritz Theater.
And we're very much interested in, we're going to have there's actually plans for a walkway right down Davis, which is we're at the intersection of Davis and Monroe. And so folks will be able to walk right down Davis Street, and it will have street lights with designs on them in pennants, I guess would be the right
Yes.
phrase. flags maybe, depicting some of the history, particularly of La Villa. So it's going to be a great opportunity.
That is good, because that was my next question. How could you bring the traffic? How could you get people to come to that location to be able to see it?
Well, it's funny. When we first moved into Brewster, a number of us were out of the office, and one of the staff was still upstairs, actually, on the balcony,
Yeah.
and having lunch, actually, and was surprised at the number of people who actually come to our building without any advertising. They're coming to our building and taking photographs of the
Yes.
building, of the sign, and of themselves in front of it. Our assumption, and it truly is, or speculation, is that they are probably folks who were born in that hospital.
Exactly.
If you were an African American, or I should actually say, if you were black in America prior to 1964, you were born in Brewster Hospital, because it was
Yes.
the only place you could be born.
Exactly.
And so it's got a tremendous history. At one time, every black city council member was born in that hospital.
Wow.
Just a couple of years ago.
Yes.
I don't know if that's true today. I'm guessing not, because there's some younger members now in the city council. But at one time, and for a long time, that was true. So it's got a great history to it, and people are naturally drawn to it. It is on a couple of maps that we do have.
Yes.
It's on the map of historic places that Jacksonville Historical Society puts out. It will be a stop on this walkway.
That's perfect.
Connecting some of the critical factors or features in La Villa. So it's going to be part of that. We do have, as you probably, well, you've seen, certainly as being a visitor, you've seen the sign out front that designated as a landmark. So it's a great opportunity for us to continue to promote it.
That's good. Have you received any community support since moving it to 843 West Monroe Street?
Yeah.
Any community support, or anybody, like you said, people were born in the hospital. Have you had anyone that wanted to maybe make a donation, or said, this is where I was born, I want to bring my birth certificate, or anything?
Well, that's one of the things that's happened, is that folks have called up and said they wanted to bring their birth certificate.
Wow.
And so we don't have any of them yet. So if folks do have them, we'd love to see a copy of it, or perhaps copy it, so that we could, or if they want to give us the original, that's fine too, although I doubt that would happen.
No.
But nonetheless, we do have folks that are coming to us with different things, particularly the nurses, of course, have given us a lot of their uniforms and their manuals and their books and some of those kinds, and certainly photographs.
Yes.
We have a ton of those, and it's great to capture that. It's also just wonderful, as you just saw in the earlier segment, how much history they have,
Yes.
what their experience was like, how they had to, what they went through, not only in terms of the training and education and the discipline that they had at that hospital
Right.
and the school for nurses, because that was the only school that a black woman, and it was only women,
Yes.
and black women could attend. And then they frequently found that they couldn't go anywhere once they graduated. There was
Right.
no
jobs.
No jobs. So they had to stay at Brewster Hospital. So so they not only experienced or had the experience of the school itself and the discipline it gave them, but they have such a deep appreciation for that. Years later, if you talk to them now, they had such a deep appreciation for, and the experiences, and having to get up and shine, or not shine, but polish their shoes.
Those white shoes.
Those white shoes, and we do have a pair of those in the museum.
Yes.
And that they had to clean their shoes, they had to make their bed so a $50 bounced on it, that's my understanding.
Yes, that's the way it is, that's the rule.
So it was nice and neat and tidy, and they had to go to class, they couldn't, as you probably learned, they had to be single. And they had to live on campus. I mean,
Yes.
all those kinds of things, and then to suffer the kind of discrimination that they still face,
Yes.
even after graduating.
Yes.
It was still an amazing thing. And for most of us, well, I'm not sure most of us anymore in the city of Jacksonville, but for many of us who were alive during the 60s find that really almost unbelievable that it would happen, but it did. And it is part of our history, and we have to know that, we have to remember it, we have to learn from it.
Exactly.
And we have to grow from it. Clearly, these nurses have grown from it.
They have.
What an incredible group of people.
I know it is, and they're trailblazers as
Yes.
far as I'm concerned. They
Yeah.
really are. So my next question, whenever you have history, you have someone who paved that way, and because of a certain individual who had the vision to make it happen. And we cannot talk about the Brewster's Hospital or the Brewster nurses without talking about Marcus Brewer. Could you tell us what role Marcus Brewer played?
Well, first of all, Marcus is an institution in Jacksonville. I've had the opportunity to meet him on a couple of occasions years ago, probably 20, almost 30 years ago.
Yes.
Had a chance to meet him at a couple of events, but nonetheless, Marcus was instrumental. He's the guy that found the land.
Yes.
He was instrumental as the CEO of Methodist and then of Brewster Hospital.
Yes.
He's really, I guess we call him the founder.
Yes.
In many respects. He was certainly a key to all of that, and including the miracle on 8th Street, which
Yes.
there's some magazines out about all of that. But he's an incredible character and a real institution and part of our history as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, you're not going to believe this, and I received a phone call from Marcus Brewer. I mean, he knew me.
Wow.
I did not know him, but somehow he ended up with my cell number.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I received a call from him, and I met him. He told me who he was, and I was like, okay. So I met with Marcus Brewer, and he gave me a piece of history, and he said, I'm going to give you a piece of history of the Brewster Hospital. And Marcus Brewer gave me the last original brick of the Brewster's Hospital.
Wow.
And I brought it with me today, and I would like to give this brick to you from the First Coast Black Nurses Association. It's the last original brick of the Brewster's Hospital. I don't know why he chose me, but I'm so happy to be able to give it to the North Florida Land Trust.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This is going to be a great addition to our museum. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It truly is a piece of history.
It is, and
Yes.
thank you so much for coming today and being a part of our webinar on the Brewster's Hospital.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
We would like to thank all of our sponsors. We could not do what we do without your support and assistance.
Dreaming about having your own podcast? Want to share your thoughts and ideas with the world but don't know how to do it? Maybe you're excited and committed but don't have a good space to record. Would you like a professional environment to produce all of your podcasts? Well, we have the latest technology from 4K to HD and various set layouts from green screen rooms to live studios. The Inspire Network is an actual television station where our studios are available for rent, and we offer editing suites with the latest technology. We have a makeup studio and beautiful spaces to prepare for your show. Don't forget to ask about our convenient photography studio to capture professional headshots or redefine your new look. Our state-of-the-art facility is intentionally laid out to accommodate your multimedia needs.